Hello, and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. You know, there are so many videos out there talking about how fabulous van life is and how it's going to give you freedom and how you'll experience things and you'll save money and all the virtues of it. And you know what? All of those comments are true. There are so many fabulous, wonderful aspects of being a nomad or living in a van or an RV. But the other side of the truth is, sometimes it just plain sucks. And there are things you need to know before you decide to get involved in life as a nomad, living in a vehicle. Because if you don't know these things, you will crash and burn. So come on, and I'm going to share some points that I think are critical for you to consider before becoming a nomad. Once you get on the road and you start traveling, and the sense of excitement and newness starts to wear out, you're going to feel a certain sense of isolation. And you're going to realize, hey, I'm alone. And if you have not been involved in van life or know any nomads or attended any meetups to meet people within this lifestyle, that's going to enhance your sense of isolation. Now, even if your friends and family support your getting involved in van life, they really don't completely understand the challenges. And it's one thing to explain maybe a difficulty that you're having or a challenge that you're having to someone who's never experienced it, and another thing to talk about it with someone who's gone through it before. You're going to need what I'm going to call a road family. In other words, a group of friends or people that you can call when things go wrong. You can call and ask for advice. You can call and rant. You have a sense of camaraderie because they've been through it. You need people who are going to be the wind beneath your sails, and they can give you sound advice because they know what you're going through. Be ready and know that there's a good possibility that you're going to have a huge case of self-doubt when you first start out after you hit the first bump or two. And there will be a few bumps. You may even have a few panic attacks. And that's normal because you know what? You have essentially burned your bridges. There's no road back to where you came from. If you've sold your house, if you've gotten rid of your storage unit, if you've let your apartment go, you really, like I said, you've burned your bridges. For someone like myself who has a home base, if things really get rough, there's a challenge, I can turn around and go home if I have to. But when you've let go of everything, you don't have that luxury. So you really have to rough it out. And again, you may have an anxiety attack, a panic attack, but if you know that this is normal and that it may come, because let's face it, any change is difficult. And a change of this magnitude, going from all the conveniences of a home or an apartment and not having them or having very few of them on the road in a vehicle, that's a huge undertaking. So just be ready and expect that you may experience some self-doubt, at least in the beginning. The third thing that really is difficult, and it was really surprising to me, even though I'd heard people talk about it, was how difficult it can be to find a safe place to park at night. I can't believe how many cities now across the country have signs everywhere, no overnight parking. There are some places it's even illegal to park and sleep in your own vehicle, in your own driveway. So there is, in some places, a lot of hostility towards people who are nomads and living in your vehicles. And I'm telling you, when you have been driving all day, maybe driven 300 miles, you're bone tired, and you just want somewhere to pull in, to park, to make a meal, and to get a good night's sleep, and you have to drive around forever trying to find a safe place, that really can get on your very last nerve. I have been there. I have had to drive over an hour, get back on the freeway, head down to the next exit, and do this several times looking for a safe place to park. And the thing is, you're in new terrain, so you don't know what areas are sketchy and what areas aren't. So you're looking, you're trying to scope them out, you're trying to evaluate it, and you're tired when you're doing this. So you really need to plan ahead, because you can minimize this with some planning ahead. And if you would like, I'll do a video addressing this and some of the other concerns. But this is, I think, one of the most difficult aspects, and I think something that really surprises and discourages people when you first start out. The next thing you need to be aware of and be prepared for is if you have a maintenance problem. You know, if you're living in a house or sticks and bricks and your plumbing goes out, or you have a leak in your roof, or your electrical, causes a problem, you still have shelter while you're getting it fixed. Unless, it happened because of a tornado or a hurricane that destroyed your property. But typically, you can live in your sticks and bricks while the problem is being addressed. That is often not the case if you're living in a vehicle. If your transmission goes out, or if your engine goes out, or even a hose or something goes out, you may have to leave your vehicle at the mechanic shop while they're working on it. And the problem is, right now, what I'm experiencing, you could wait a week or two to get the parts. I had a crack in my reservoir for the coolant, and it took over a week to get the part in. So I was able to still drive because it was a tiny, tiny little crack, and I just monitored it. But if it's something serious, like a transmission going out or a problem with your engine, it could take a couple of weeks to even get on their schedule to have them look at the problem and diagnose it. And then it could take a while to get the parts. Meanwhile, your rig is your home, and you now not only have to pay for the maintenance or the repairs to your rig, you also have to find a place to live and pay for that probably also. I don't think that many of the people that are going into van life or becoming nomads now are really going in giving proper thought to that and proper preparation to what they will do and what their plan is should they have to be out of their rig for a period of time. I am frequently hearing of or hearing from nomads who are stuck somewhere. Their vehicle broke down, they don't have the funds to pay to get it repaired, and they don't have a backup plan or any place to stay while it is getting repaired. This is one of the big items that really suck about van life, and I don't hear people talking about it a lot, but it is something that you need to know if you're going to become a nomad, and be prepared and have backup funds just in case this should happen to you. The next thing that's a challenge on the road that is not talked about enough, and I don't think people really give thought to often, is what happens if you get sick on the road. A lot of nomads had to encounter this during the pandemic. If you're away from home, not even maybe out in the middle of nowhere, but just in another city that's far from your healthcare provider or your doctor, you don't know what clinic to go to, you don't even know if you're covered and if your insurance will cover you if you're out of state. These are things that a lot of people I have spoken to have not looked into. But it can be very serious if you get sick on the road, you have to go to the hospital, you haven't properly checked it out, and you end up with a huge, huge medical bill that you weren't prepared for and don't have the funds to pay for. So this is something that needs to be given thought to and needs to be researched before hitting the road. How are you going to take care of your medical needs? How are you going to get your medication? You know, do you have a pharmacy that you can have mail it to you? Do you have somewhere that you're going to be that you can receive it? Can you get it 90-day increments and set up some kind of schedule so you know where you're going to be so someone can send it to you? These are all kinds of things that are critical when you're on the road to prepare for. And if you don't, it can be a disaster financially and medically. The last thing I want to talk about probably causes more people to crash and burn on the road than anything else, and that is finances. I have spoken to and met scores of people who are spending more on the road than they did when they were in their sticks and bricks. They left their sticks and bricks because they were broke and they thought going on the road would save them money, but they're spending more. And I'm going to tell you, being broke in a house or an apartment is no fun, but being broke on the road, that really sucks. I have met people who were in courtside or somewhere else when I went to a gathering, and they had to stay there an extra week that they didn't plan to because they ran out of money and had to wait for their Social Security check to be deposited before they could buy gas to go to their next destination. And you ask, well, how does this happen? Well, what happens is they don't plan. They don't have a budget. They don't keep track of their expenses. They are traveling perhaps in states where gas is really expensive, like California, where it can be over $6 a gallon, and they're just not keeping track, like I said, of their spending. If you're on the road, you have to have a budget. You have to write down what's coming in, and then you have to anticipate what you're going to spend, and you have to keep track of it. If you have set aside or planned on spending $200 in a month for gas, you shouldn't be getting to the middle of the month and have spent $200 and be stuck somewhere. You have to keep track of it. You have to write down. I think when a person starts on the road, and I think just in general, I do this, and I am not on the road full time, but I still do this when I'm at my home base. I keep track of every single cent that I spend. So I review it on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, to see if I've allocated so much money towards one area. If I'm getting close to that, I know that I have to stop spending in that area. So if you're on the road and you've allocated so much towards gas and you're getting to that limit, then you have to stop traveling and stay stationary for a while. And I think a lot of people, when they get on the road, just zoom, 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 they travel all over everywhere, and they don't keep track of that. The other thing that is a money sucker is eating out. People on the road, when they first begin, will stop for coffee, or they'll be somewhere, there's a restaurant they want to try out, or they'll stop in and get a snack or a sandwich, or when they stop for gas, they'll go in and get a drink. That adds up. Well, I hope that this video and the pitfalls that I've identified for folks who are considering going on the road will be helpful to you, and will even be helpful to some folks who are already on the road and need to make some adjustments. I am going to look at possibly doing some more videos on budgeting, whether you're on the road or not. And if you would be interested in seeing those, let me know in the comments. And also let me know what you think about this video. Meanwhile, may your journeys be filled with joy and blessings and financial stability. And I will see you down the road.